Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Glass Garden, a Korean drama from 2017 that was directed by Su-won Shin and stars Geun-young Moon. Now, I just reviewed Su-won Shin's film Pluto the other day, and I reviewed Madonna previously. Now, Glass Garden is her most recent feature, and I was very much looking forward to it because both of her last two films are good. Now, our lead protagonist is a PhD student, played by Geun-young Moon, who you will recognize from films like A Tale of Two Sisters. She was the little sister in that, as well as a bunch of K-dramas over the years. And in this film, her character has a disabled leg. Now, she's working at a struggling research laboratory that needs to present an interesting project at a conference in order to maintain their funding. Because if you're doing research, you need to make sure at least the cash is still coming in, otherwise you gotta shut things down. So Moon has the best idea of her colleagues, but her theories in how to, research that idea are pretty wild and unorthodox. You know, they involve plants and different weird stuff involving plants. But, so the conference leaders are not too impressed with how she's, presenting these interesting ideas. So, the other researchers in her lab kind of piggyback off of her main theme and use them for more practical purposes. So, obviously, she gets kind of shown up at the conference, goes badly for her, and she decides to conduct some research deep in the forest. Now, the other main character to this movie is a writer, a man who was dumped by his girlfriend over the phone and is struggling with his career. And for certain reasons, he eventually seeks Moon's character out in her forest laboratory, and the film goes from there. So much of the opening half hour is dedicated to developing the plot points, as I mentioned. Now, it establishes some interesting dilemmas and hardships for both of our main characters. I found it to be pretty effective in that way. But after, the 35-minute setup portion, Glass Garden takes a sharp left turn into art house territory. Oh yes, this becomes a full-fledged art film after that. Now, this is definitely the weirdest film that I've seen from this director so far, and it's not even close, because her prior films had a fairly conventional storytelling structure, and the narratives were easy to follow. Now, Glass Garden, on the other hand, kind of stalls its conventional narrative at times, opting instead to rely on imagery and bizarre events to hold your interest. Now, this kind of movie is right up my frickin' alley, to be honest, but even I would say that Glass Garden is only, moderately successful at accomplishing what it's trying to do here. You know, there are certain moments that actually explain things through monologue, which were unnecessary in my opinion. There's also a connection between the health condition of one character to Moon's character's research that I felt was a bit contrived. And the biggest problem with this movie is that it does not do an especially good job of using its visuals to create thought-provoking sequences on a consistent basis. No, there are some here, for sure, but it's inconsistent. So, do you know what Glass Garden actually reminded me of at times? There's another film that it reminded me of, and that is Charisma, the film by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, which is a divisive art film in its own right. But that movie did a fantastic job of blending its visuals and dialogue together to create a intellectually stimulating experience from start to finish. I actually really love that movie. Glass Garden, on the other hand, it has patches of dullness to it, especially during the second half. I found myself kind of checking out a little bit. It had no, sense of propulsion at developing these themes that it's introducing. Also, I felt that Geun-young Moon's acting got progressively less dynamic as the film rolled along. During the opening half, she had layers and variation to her performance, but for much of the second half, her acting felt kind of flat and monotonous at times. But there are some other positives here that I need to mention. After watching Glass Garden, I realized that this director really does have a talent for capturing beautiful visuals. I mean, the forest environments are pretty awesome in this. There are some great shots of sunlit leaves and forest grounds, lots of lush green color to enjoy. It's an extremely vibrant green hue that's used here, which I really liked. It's kind of eye-popping. It's also pretty atmospheric at times, some ominous winds and swaying trees and stuff like that. There are some very creative ideas that are introduced to this. I like it when South Korea produces a movie like this. I mentioned in the past that, Japan has a fairly consistent production schedule when it comes to making weird movies, which I like. South Korea at times tends to have streaks where a lot of their synopses are very conventional. So I like that they made a movie like this because it's different from a lot of the more conventional mainstream films that get more of the attention. And even though it does not fire on all cylinders by any means, I do think that Glass Garden is weird and interesting enough to be worth a watch, especially if you're a fan of oddball films. If you do decide to watch it, go in with tempered expectations, however. Like I said, things don't really connect as well as they probably could have here, but I did kind of enjoy it. It's currently available on Amazon Streaming in the United States. Now, Su-won Shin also made a film in 2010 called Passerby Number 3, which I've been hearing about for years. I've never had the chance to watch it. At this point, I may just blind buy it on DVD so I can get caught up on all of her feature-length films. But if I do end up watching that, I'll let you know my thoughts on that film as well. But this is a talented director. I think that, Glass Garden was kind of a step back in terms of just her overall filmography. But I like that she can do weird stuff. Her sense of, her eye to capturing images is developing really well. So if she can just shore up the script a little bit better for her next film, it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. So, as always, I'll see you next time.